Tom Fitzgerald was a United States Marine from 1982 to 1988. I also served in the Army National Guard while I was going through college from 1990 to 1994 through Desert Storm. Yeah, Solemn Pride is just it's basically a funeral service for military, but we have a military caisson, which a caisson is used in the earlier technology days during war, where they would take ammunition and powder on a wagon. It's basically an ammunition wagon, and they would hitch it to a limber, and a team would pull it to the battlefield so they could, use it in battle. And the story goes in the Civil War, they would take the fallen soldier off, take the animal chests off the wagon and put them on there to honor them. But we tie everything together, so we use the historical nature of how we got here into giving these services. So we literally ride the two mules on saddle, and then they have the trugs that actually attach to the limber and caisson. And then we escort the caskets, the flag-drawn caskets, and the urns to the service member's final duty station. Solemn Pride is a nonprofit that my family started in honor of my brother, who passed away early in life from cancer. He was an Army veteran. Influenced by my wife's parents as well. Her father was a World War II veteran in the Navy, and her mother was a very active community member. So it was kind of hard to go through that somber service of losing a brother, and who was my best friend, and he was my only sibling, so it was just he and I, and he's my big brother. So we've got passionate into trying to help others that go through the same thing. We were most influenced by many factors. The first would be my parents, who were very faithful and always giving to others, a great role model as I grew up. My military service, of course, when I went into the Marine Corps, the Marines instilled a great deal of Marine Corps history, and I got really excited about that, which we kind of model in our services at the National Cemetery and other cemeteries for veterans. The history, just to tell you a little bit about that, it was an evolution into Solemn Pride, but I started with mules, and they learned how to drive artillery, and then the Northwest Point Association of Florida contacted us and wanted us to do some stuff in St. Augustine, so we got really turned on to the history in Florida during the Seminole Indian Wars. And in 1842, they honored the soldiers that fell during the 6 years of the Seminole Indian Wars. And the headlines in the newspaper said, "Elegant mules transport Major Dade and his men in a solemn parade to mark the end of the Seminole Indian Wars." So there was a lot of history with the mules and honoring those that have fallen for their country. So that was a big part of it, is kind of pulling it all together, knowledge and having horses and mules, and giving back to the community. My wife Denise, her mom wasn't in the service, but she gave to the community like nobody I ever heard of. I mean, quilting blankets, and she did crafts and just gave through the church to the community for years, and just and once you start giving, as I found out, as we both found out, it gets addictive, and you really open up doors. Solemn Pride just started as a simple community give back to help help people that have lost someone that sacrificed near and dear to them. Mostly veterans initially, but we ended up branching out to others, just other family members that, like my mother-in-law, who has sacrificed for her community. So we wouldn't do it in the same military fashion, but we would do it in the correct context. But Solemn Pride just developed as the right thing to do, and give just do it something not about us, not make it about us, but try to add that, John F. Kennedy's caisson escort with blackjack and the riderless horse, and everybody remembers the John salute, whether you were of age to witness it on television or a video of it today. People really feel this sense of pride with it, and that was the fitting part of Solemn Pride. It's a solemn service, but it's very prideful. So our mission really became to transform the somberness associated with life's end into prideful memories, and that is our mission. And we're finding that it's really taking off. I mean, we've done hundreds and hundreds of services in the last 7 years, and the thank you cards that we get and receive, that's our payback. We're kind of addicted to it because we know it's affecting so many in our community, thousands of people, friends and families that actually witness it, and then they'll individually have their own prideful memories about their loved one that they lost. And the cards that we didn't expect, the recognition like Chad Barr Law and the team is giving us today, that's a bonus, but it's really not about us. It's about family that have lost. The Missing in America Project. Missing in America Project is one. They're actually a nonprofit organization throughout the nation. A lot of veterans that have perished and they had contracts to be cremated, families for some reason did not collect their remains, so they stayed on shelves for years. And there's a lot of reasons why that may happen, and they're really not important. The important part is to give them a proper burial for raising their right hand that they would give their life for their country. We did one in early February. We did 24, recognized 24 service members. One of them was on a shelf for 40 years, and he was a World War I veteran. And obviously most of these were fortunate enough not to have to give their life, but they did, when they did pass, we want to recognize them for their sacrifice that they would have given their life had they needed to. And again, they may just have outlived their families, lost touch with their families. So we work with the Veterans Memorial, Brevard County's Veterans Memorial Center in Merritt Island, and they outreach to all the area funeral homes in Central Florida, and we know there's over 1,000 unclaimed urns in Central Florida alone. So we typically would do 24 services every 3 months, every quarter. COVID, of course, put us back 2 years, but we did start one in February of this year. But even at that rate, for a year, we're looking at 10 years to get caught up. But it's certainly worthwhile. But the Veterans Memorial Center, they are a great group of men and women who, they dedicate all kinds of projects and things for veteran support, whether they're homeless, etc. But they are actually responsible mainly for doing the ancestry. They coordinate with the funeral homes. They do the ancestry.com, and then they try to connect that veteran with their family, and that's documented. And whether they do or don't, after a period of time of trying, the VA actually acknowledges that there's plenty of documentation, and then they put the urns in a columbarium wall. One, because if the family did, it's recorded where they are, and it was a proper military service. They could easily get them out of the wall if the family wanted to move them to another location, in case they actually get reconnected later. Another thing we got involved with is Wreaths Across America. That's another thing, and instead of bringing, obviously, the veterans there, we carry ceremonial wreaths. We will carry, it's 8 wreaths now with the Space Force, and we actually do a ceremony for Cape Canaveral National Cemetery with our caisson. We made an A-frame to hold these wreaths. and we present them in military fashion to each branch honoree, and they do a formal service to commemorate the event. And every headstone at all national cemeteries, they put a wreath at every headstone, unless the family has some religious or reason not to, and they're identified, and we wouldn't do that. So they're a nonprofit organization that we volunteered to help, honor and support them to heighten awareness of their cause. That one is, you go to Wreaths Across America online, and there's always donations. So you buy 2 wreaths, you get 1 free, and you can actually designate it to one cemetery or multiple if you have loved ones that you can't see at Christmas that may be buried at other national cemeteries. Yes, I'm active in the Detachment 513 Marine Corps League in Merritt Island, and I'm the Marine for Life, which means that I help transitioning this. I'm the contact for the area, the region, that would help Marines that are transitioning from active duty back home into this area, and I would help them identify if they wanted to tap into educational benefits that they qualify for, or if they want to get employment. We have a network of people that through the state and also the federal government that, depending on their circumstances, we can kind of connect them to their appropriate civilian path. It's fairly a new program. It's been I think 3 or 4 years, and we're really trying to heighten it. Currently, it's kind of a funnel down effect when the Marines can identify in active duty where they're going to go after service, and then they funnel it through some contacts, and so it's kind of like you just wait to see who's coming. I'd like to do some recruiting because we're at the Space Center. We have tons of jobs. Great colleges in Central Florida here. We're very well connected with the federal government programs. There's programs with the federal government when you transition, and most active duty don't even know it, that they'll literally, an employer can say, hey, I'll take that veteran, and not just the Marine, I'll take that veteran, and we'll actually hire them, and the federal government will pay up to 3 months, so there's all benefits and salary for them. And if it's good, they get to feel each other out. And if they're a good fit and qualified, they can either hire them, or if it's highly likely that they'll hire them, they'll actually extend it to 6 months. It's a good way to get experience and also meet the employers out there to see if they're a good fit for the veterans that are coming out of active duty. My wife was retired from Titusville Police Department. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was a Marietta, Georgia police officer for a few years, and before I went back to college. And but her service as a crime scene technician for Titusville for 24 years, certainly amazing. And I got connected in our Central Florida region, and right here in Central Florida is the American Police Hall of Fame. So the weekend prior to Memorial Day, they would have the Fallen Police Officer Week, and they're a great organization. Police organizations are paramilitary. They run in very similar fashion. We're discovering that there's more police officers perishing in this country than are dying in our wars now with technology, and so the American Police Hall of Fame, they actually invite the families every year of families that have lost a police officer, and they put them up at hotels, and then they do a ceremony during that, and they've asked us to participate with coming through with a ceremonial caisson in the mule team, and we work close hand in hand with Brevard County Sheriff's Wayne Ivy's group. He actually created a posse 10 years ago, which Denise was a member for over 8, and I was a member for about 6 months. But Solemn Pride pulled us away, but it's an amazing experience to give to others and try to make prideful memories for our fallen police officials. it's very moving. They have their own police, like a Vietnam wall. They have a wall in there with all the fallen police officers, and each year they read every name for that year of the fallen police officers, and it's in the hundreds, high hundreds. So it's certainly a sad thing, but again, it's like veteran awareness of what's available. I think the public needs to know, what our first responders do for us too. It's not an easy job. Across the street we had U-pick, strawberry U-pick, and they had other vegetables. And then I've had a couple bad years with the extra rain, and they're not doing the strawberries any longer, but they've been doing very successful at having crop mazes with sun hemp and sunflowers. And they'll set up a maze for the kids, and it's a Kodak moment with the sunflowers. And that's Sledge U-pick and Mims, and they're right across the street from where the mules are, so how convenient. And great people. And we would kind of go out there and volunteer occasionally to help them. Another unexpected, it was the community request for information about what we do. We've done a lot of outreach and speech programs for youth ministries, and we were up, was it last year, for the Boys and Girls Club of America up in Perry, Florida, when this is near Tallahassee. We were doing a color guard for the Chapter 1 of the Military Vehicle Preservation Association. They're very historical about military vehicles, and actually a caisson is a military vehicle, it just doesn't have an engine, but mule power. But they invited us up, and this was the second time that we actually carried the colors without the caisson, just the limber part, to bring some nostalgia and military history to the parade. Perry, Florida has a forest festival every year, and I think they're in their 67th year. And we were fortunate to go 2 years, the last 2 years that they had it, to lead the color guard for the MVPA. And while we were up there, we spoke with the Girls and Boys Club of America in Perry. We've gone down to Presbyterian Church in Vero Beach and talked to their adult ministries and their men's club, and we're going to be having, I think in a couple of weeks, their youth group from Vero Beach, Presbyterian Church. They're going to come up and visit the National Cemetery, and then we're going to bring them over to the farm and show them the caisson and kind of what we do. And and hopefully not, we won't have a service, but if we do, then they'll get the experience what you did, Chuck. Not something I would wish on anybody, but if it happens, we'll see. Well, again, the only other thing I can think of is we have done some that weren't military at all. We did one for a mother. The daughter wanted horses. Her mom was ate up with horses and wanted to have that for the service, and we actually did it in a non-military cemetery up in Edgewater. And it was really, really special for us. We kind of dressed down on the military, but we did it in the same fashion, and very well received. And the whole family marched with us, and it was very touching, very touching. And again, it just fills our heart to be able to give back and know that it's something special for their loved ones.